Indigenous artist Norval Morrisseau was known for many things. His beautiful artwork, founding the Woodland School of Canadian Art gallery exhibitions around the world, and also, unfortunately, for being the target of organized art fraud. Last week, Thunder Bay Police and OPP announced they'd charged 8 people and seized more than 1,000 paintings after an investigation into fraudulent Norval Morrisseau artwork. 5 of the accused are from Thunder Bay. To find out more, we're joined now by Thunder Bay Police Detective Sergeant Jason Rybak, who was one of the primary investigators. Detective Sergeant Rybak, good morning.
Good morning, Mary-Jean.
So let's start at the beginning. What prompted this investigation?
So back in 2019, I was looking at the murder of Scott Dove. And during that investigation, I was contacted by his mom asking if I had seen the documentary There Are No Fakes. I had not, and so I proceeded to watch the documentary, and through that learned of the art fraud that was going on in Thunder Bay and began looking into that issue. It quickly became evident we were getting into something very large. It was the members of the Major Crime Unit who were working on it at the time, and with the senior leadership who was supportive of the investigation, we needed to contact the OPP to come in and work jointly on the investigation.
So the joining of you and OPP, what was the plan there in terms of what the OPP could bring to the work you were already doing?
So the OPP provided a case manager, Detective Inspector Kevin Vayu. He oversaw the investigation. They assisted in providing resources. As it became large-scale and international in nature, we've traveled across Canada, worked with the FBI in the U.S. at the beginning, and they provided a lot of assistance in helping us navigate search warrants with resources in Southern Ontario and officers across the province when we may not have been able to travel.
How did you go about conducting this investigation? It sounds like it was just so much to be done in terms of, interviews and, like you say, search warrants. And tell me a bit about that process and what involved.
Well, it was a systematic process. The investigators assigned to it from Thunder Bay, we all have background in homicide investigations. So we really looked at it from that standpoint. And one of the key things we did was we wanted to reconstruct Norval's life. And so we reached out to people who were with Norval through his painting history, including 2 surviving members of the Indigenous Group of 7. And we learned how he painted, why he painted, what he did, what he didn't do. That was one component of it. The second component was obviously interviewing people involved in the fraud. There were individuals who came forward who were involved in the creation. And then the third piece to that was utilizing technology to today's standards from various agencies that provided forensic reports and evidence to support our investigation.
So what did you discover? How did this actual fraud work? How were the paintings created, distributed? How did it happen?
So I can't get into a lot of the nuances of it because it's before the courts, but in generalities, we learned that in 1996, David Voss was the architect of the whole scheme here in Thunder Bay, and he solicited a group of individuals to help him create the paintings. He was involved in the distribution of the paintings to Southern Ontario. It ultimately got into the art galleries and then into auction houses down in Southern Ontario. And it's well documented in 2002, I believe, is when the first problem started developing in Ontario with fake paintings. Norval himself was alive during that period and was noting through court affidavits which paintings of his were fake. And there was a real pushback from a group of individuals who were trying to say that there was no problem with the fake paintings. And so once that happened, Gary Lamont got involved, and they started creating a different style of painting. And he was using Indigenous artists Benjamin Morrisseau and Tim Tate, who are excellent painters in their own right. And so the paintings became better quality paintings, a little bit harder to recognize the paintings. but they were still unique in a sense. And so that continued on till around 2008. And then, again, the controversy was well documented in the media and through the courts. There was some civil litigation on this issue. And a group out of Southern Ontario in 2008 began creating a third style of painting, which, again, they tried to frame it as the 1980s style of Norval paintings. And so there's really three distinct groups. And as you get longer in looking into this investigation, as I have, it becomes quite obvious which painting fits within each group just by looking at them and then looking at how Norval's actually painted his real paintings. The Thunder Bay Art Gallery was fantastic. They have, I think, the second largest collection of Norval paintings in Canada. And so we certainly looked at a lot of the paintings that the art gallery has here. I've been to the Canadian Art Gallery in Ottawa, and a few others have, Hamilton provided great assistance, the Glenbow in Calgary, the McMichael Institute, which have great collections of Norval Morrisseau paintings. So that was a kind of the framework of the four stages of what we did.
Wow. A lot of paintings seized. Where were they seized from?
We seized paintings all across Ontario. We seized a large collection out in Calgary. The Calgary Police Service provided great assistance to us out there. We flew out west, executed a couple search warrants out there. I think we were around 1,200 paintings in total were seized. The vast majority were seized in Ontario. We seized hundreds here in Thunder Bay.
What did collectors, owners of these paintings, how did they react? What did they say when you show up and say, this is a fake, I'm taking it?
Well, it wasn't quite that simple. It was an interesting investigation because there was we dealt with victims from, the person who spent their last dollar on something for their retirement right up to billionaires who had spent millions of dollars on collections. And so we had to engage victim assistance throughout this because some people, it devastated them.
Sure.
There was another faction to this, which a lot of, a victimization of individuals like Kevin Hearn, Richie Sinclair, Gabe Vadas, who was Norval's adopted son, the family members who were also victimized in the sense that they were trying to show that there was a problem with the paintings and were attacked for that view from groups that wanted to say that there was no fakes.
My goodness. And you, before I let you go, you've said you are normally a homicide investigator. What was that like for you, taking on a project so different from your day-to-day?
It was interesting. I worked with a great team of officers from the Thunder Bay Police. I'm just fortunate enough to have been labeled the quote unquote the primary investigator, but I was only one member of a team of dedicated officers who had a real passion for investigating this. Everything we investigate, we investigate to the same standard. So it really was just another investigation where we built it. We never left a rock. We turned over every rock. To ensure that when we brought this case forward, we were confident in the evidence, we were confident in the investigation, and we're holding the people accountable.
And when will this go to court? Do we know?
I believe the first appearance is March 24th here in Thunder Bay. There will also be the GTA faction is appearing, I believe, in Bradford on the same date.
Thank you so much for coming in and talking to us about it. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mary-Jean.
That was Thunder Bay Police Detective Sergeant Jason Rybak.